Okay, this is for July 31st. July 31st, we'll just end out the series we're calling What About? Question mark. And it's where we did a survey of the congregation, and they mainly asked for politics. That was the number one. The number two was how do you live a godly life in a godless society kind of stuff. And so we're going to do a whole series on that starts the following week on August 7th. However, on July 31st, we're going to explore the Old Testament. People did ask, what's the Old Testament's role? How do you view the Old Testament? What does it mean? Does it mean anything for us in the New Testament era? And so I think a great angle on that day for any worship team would be to trace the pictures of Jesus in the Old Testament, because that's really what the Old Testament is. One principle I heard said was that the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. In other words, its function is it was revealing what the Old Testament was always really saying. The Old Testament is the New Testament concealed. So in other words, the Old Testament functions, and the Bible actually says this, that it's shadows, it's types, it's pictures, and according to Jesus, it's pictures of Jesus. So as a worship team, find a picture of Jesus from the Old Testament that you think would be interesting to share. It could be one, it could be several, but we're going to kind of look at that whole thing and let people see. There's a great one, the way the camp of Israel was set up is one of my favorites, and you could use this. In the book of Numbers, if you actually do what God says to do, their camp would have looked like a giant cross across the desert, which is kind of cool. And there's artists' renderings of that. So in other words, Jesus said, all of the Old Testament is about me. The scriptures are about me. He said to the Pharisees, he said, you study the scriptures thinking that by them you have eternal life, and you don't realize they're talking about me. I'm the source of eternal life. So sharing those kinds of passages, but sharing just even one picture of Jesus from the Old Testament, of Jonah, Abraham, they're all over the place, the tabernacle, would be good stuff to kind of look into. And if there's songs that reflect kind of his prophecies or Old Testament statements about him, would be good ideas to play off of.